Welcome to Chapter 8 of my book Secret Society of the Shamans, titled this time, Dreams, Visions, and Prophets of the Great Spirit. I cannot help marvel at how North American Indian culture is so diverse from tribe to tribe, even within a close area. There are, however, certain things which show little variation from group to group. The extreme significance of pipe smoking is one of the things which you've already examined. Another area which ties deeply into the spiritual beliefs and traditions of most Indians are dreams and visions. One need only look at the vision quest practiced among almost all Native American Indians. A plethora of material has been entered into American literature on this subject, so I will touch only briefly upon that in a later chapter. Dreams, however, have been a mystical influence on all cultures of the world. They have influenced great wars and great discoveries. Dreams are the stuff of which prophecy is made of. Look at St. John on the Isle of Patmos. To me, dreams hold little significance that is until I became interested in the Indian culture. I told you earlier about the image stone I found in my backyard. I purposely left out for this chapter the influence dreams had upon this particular episode. I related to you that my dog Samson had uncovered pottery in our backyard, and that the woman to whom I was married at the time, she and I excavated, she stood by and watched, about 1,200 pieces of pottery and other associated relics. What I did not tell you is that for months before the actual events, I had dreams nearly every night of relics being found in our backyard at that particular area. There was another such spot under a large oak tree, though excavations could not be done there due to the root system and our signed agreement to sell the house. I will always wonder what lay beneath the sands in my former yard, underneath that oak tree. But who among the Indians dreams the dreams, or who has the visions? Well, of course they all do. But does anyone's dreams have more important or import than others? Naturally, those of the shaman or powerful chief held the highest weight. There were also the Winkleys, as Winkles, special prophets whose dreams held a great significance. Who or what were these people? Well, they are men who dressed like women. We have them today, but the significance is different in the Indian culture. They did this by their own choice, though, through instruction received via dreams. According to John Lane Deer, the Great Spirit made them this way and endowed on them the gift of prophecy. It is also told that a father would give a horse to have one of these shaman name his child, as there was believed to be very powerful medicine in a name chosen by them. The Winkleys prophets are said to have a very special origin. They begin as twins of different sexes growing in the womb, and through some spiritual manifestation, they are merged into one. Though they are considered sacred, the father of young boys did not like them to be around the Winkleys and instructed them to keep their distance. In times now long past, the Winkleys used to refer to each other as sisters. They were not buried with others, but rather together on a special hill. Naturally, the dreams of the shamans are extremely powerful. It is interesting to point out here that the shaman learns his path in life through a dream, in particular the vision quest. It is at that time that the young man who has reached puberty learns whether he will be a hunter, a shaman, or a warrior. Dreams, dances, and medicine go hand in hand. If during the course of an illness a dance is deemed necessary, it is so ordered by the shaman. Dreams are believed to be the language of the soul. For those who consider astral projection to be of Eastern origin, I say look again. The soul's separation from the body during the dream state was and is still very much employed by the Indians. I met an elderly lady at the Mankato, Michigan reservation. Her name escapes me now, but she looked ancient, as though she had always been here to watch the slow parade of time. She told me that when she sleeps, her soul often leaves her body and wanders to any place it desires. She also claims that during these ethereal wanderings, that she can steal the souls of other persons. I wonder about her, but dared not to ask if she was a Makwamosa, the bear walker. Such beliefs, though, were part of the record from the early contact period. Christian missionaries found that the Huron Indians believed that their souls detached from their bodies during sleep and wandered completely independent of the body's control. Again, early missionaries to the Northeast were astounded by the strong faith given to dreams. The Hurons considered them as a direct order from Gitchimanitu, the Great Spirit. Without delay, orders received in dreams had to be carried out. It was also found that in order for an individual's dreams to be carried out without question, that he had to be a person of higher than average standing in his group, and that dreams of his had in the past come true. It was delegated to the parent to dream for the child, and if the dream was of a symbolic nature, it was left to the shaman to interpret and act upon it. Most Indian men went to lonely, secluded places to obtain their visions. At such places it was not uncommon for spirits to come to the individual to aid him. To assist in the desired vision coming with more swiftness, the Crow Indians would practice self-sacrifice, sometimes cutting off a small piece of the finger. There are those people who cannot, for some reason, have a vision of their own. To these people, provision is made. They can buy a vision and medicine bundle from a shaman, though these sacred accoutrements were seldom as powerful as those obtained by the seeker himself. The special vision, which affected the course of the entire life, was generally obtained at an early age, usually at puberty. This is the vision quest and is a much anticipated event. The vision quest is no longer just for the Indian, as for a price a white participant can be led through this truly grueling process. The vision quest among the Miami Indians, as with most others, began with a fast of several days at puberty. This was for the distant purpose of discovering the guardian spirit. Both boys and girls participated in this. Fasting was just a part of it. There was a special place selected for the vision. It was always a lonely one, out-of-the-way place, where the seeker could be alone. In many tribes, this was a pit in the ground away from the village, and often on a hill so as to be nearer the Great Spirit. A variation on the pit was given in Kichigami, where it is reported that, and I quote, "The grandfather then took me by the hand and led me deep into the forest. Here he selected a lofty tree, a red pine, and prepared a bed for me in the branches on which I should lie down to fast. We cut down the brushes and twined them through the pine branches. Then I plucked moss, with which I covered the trellis work, threw a mat my mother had made for the occasion over it, and myself on top of it. I was also permitted to fasten a few branches together over my head as a sort of protection from wind and rain." End quote. It was imperative that the seeker does not break the fast. In the Northeast, it is so strictly adhered to that even swallowing a little rainwater would ruin the quest. The vision seeker was going to go through one of the most sacred of traditions. Through his quest, he would, if successful, obtain a powerful medicine or amulet, which would accompany him through all the trials of his life. Besides those preparations already mentioned, the seeker would sometimes take a sweat bath beforehand, for purification, as well as bathing in the smoke from pine needles. Depending on what tribe you belong to, you might be painted with white clay, though this was not the rule. Usually after purification, the seeker would go to his special spot, naked save for moccasins and a breechclout, so that he would be humbled before the Great Spirit. This duration of the of the quest was anywhere from 1 to 5 days, with 4 being the average. The visions were not always a success, but it was of great importance to not deceive others if you failed personally, or the vision just did not come. Again, I turn to Kichigami for an example. It is reported there, and I quote, "I promised my grandfather that I would keep the fast, but unfortunately I did not keep my promise. For 3 days I bore the laying and hunger and thirst, but when I descended from the tree into the grass on the 4th day, I saw refreshing leaves of a little herb growing near the tree, and I could not resist it, but plucked the leaves and ate them. And when I had eaten them, my craving grew so much the greater that I walked about the forest, sought the edible sprigs, plants, mosses, and herbs I could find, and ate to my fill." End quote. This young boy slunk back to the grandfather, but was true enough of heart to admit his error. He was afraid of what reproach might await. But there was none. He was merely told that he would try again the next spring. A great many people, skeptics who must find a rational explanation for everything, claim that the vision is manifested due to the hunger and state of the seeker must be in after 4, sometimes more days. But in a point of fact, the fasting process is part of the cleansing and is in fact not a great deal different from the Jewish Christian custom of fasting for cleansing. The lad that I spoke of from the work Kichigami had indeed the next spring a very long quest, 8 days, but the results finally came to him. His narrative is wonderful and says so much about the Indian spirituality and the vision quest itself. The lad simply called it in the book the cloud, and here is the way the cloud's vision occurred. He said that, and I quote, "On the 8th night I heard a rustling and waving in the branches. It was like a heavy bear or elk breaking through the shrubs and forest. I was greatly afraid, but the man who approached me, whoever he may have been, read my thoughts and saw my fear at a distance, so he came towards me more and more gently and rested quite noiselessly on the branches over my head. Then he began to speak to me and to ask me, 'Are you afraid, my son?' 'No,' I replied. 'I no longer fear.' 'Why art thou here in this tree?' I replied, 'To fast and to gain strength and know my life.'" The communication between the cloud and the man was not in verbal utterings, but as though they looked to meet in each other's hearts and minds and knew the thoughts. The cloud was instructed to follow the mysterious man. The cloud rose up from his bed with little effort, and after 8 nights, and he followed. But I am sure he did not physically follow, rather in the spirit, as this was a vision. His spirit floated towards the east. In fact, the cloud said he felt as though they were floating on air, going higher and higher into a lofty mountain, ever eastward. The cloud then said, "We reached the summit after a long time. I found a wigwam built there, into which we entered. At first I saw nothing but a large white stone that lay in the middle of the hut. But on looking around more sharply, I saw 4 men sitting around the stone. They invited me to take a seat on the white stone in the midst of them. But I hardly sat down, and the stone began sinking into the earth. 'Stay,' one of the men said. 'Wait a minute. We have forgotten the foundation.' Thus speaking, he fetched a white tanned deerskin and covered the stone with it. And when I sat down on it again, it was as firm as a tree, and I sat comfortably." End quote. It is in such manner that the vision quest proceeds. The amazing thing to all who have studied this phenomenon is that it works. It should never be tried alone, however, as special instruction is required. This chapter on dreams and visions can probably be best ended with a letter written in 1709 at Quebec by missionary Rodot. You must remember, though, that this will have a slant to his own way of thinking. The letter begins, and I quote, "The Indians are much given to dreams, and are so well persuaded that it is their spirit who gives them to them, that they absolutely must carry them out. It is dreams which oblige them to undertake wars, to make great voyages, to abandon war parties which they have undertaken against their enemies, and to return from them to their cabins. It is also these dreams that give them their spirit, or to use their term, their manitou, which they imagine takes care of them in all the acts of their lives. The Indians, whom time has made wise in spite of themselves, and incapable of the same debauches that they formerly had, recount to their children of the ways they came into the world, of their country and their wars, and tell them 1,000 stories filled with superstition. But as soon as there is one of them who has reached the age of 10 or 12 years, and who can use the bow and arrow, his father says to him that he is of an age to get a spirit, and to choose a Manitou for himself, and he gives him, at the same time, the instructions necessary to succeed in this. For this purpose he has him matach, or paint, his face black with crushed charcoal, and requires him in this state to fast for several days, in order that, having the brain empty, he can more easily dream during his sleep, which is the time that the god ought to disclose himself to him and strike his imagination with some extraordinary thing or some animal which holds the place of divinity for him. The father, anxious to know the dream of his child, watches the time of his awakening in order that he speak to no one before him, and questions him privately on what happened in his imagination during the night. If nothing has happened, he counsels him to continue his fast, saying to him that on this occasion he must give marks of his firmness and his strength. And finally, his brain represents to him some object, such as the sun, the thunder, or other extraordinary things, of which he has often heard his father or elders speak of. When this child dreams, he runs to carry the news to his father, who strongly recommends to him not to divulge it, and encourages him with many reasons to accept this dream, and to honor this idea which he takes thenceforth from his childhood for his divinity, for his Manitou, for his protector, and continues during his life to worship it by sacrifices and feasts which he gives in its honor. End quote. Who dreams the dream? They all do. The lowest person to the most noble chief, to the prophets known as the Winkleys, they all dream, and they all have visions, and they are given powerful medicines from the Manitous. That's it for this time. Next time I'll be reading Chapter 9, The Woodland Shaman Herbalist. If you haven't done so yet, please be sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the new programs here on my favorite channel, the Dennis Morrison channel. And have a great evening, and God bless.